Hello, I'm Nima Rajan and welcome to Northwest Newsweek. It was a historic day not just for the Pikangikum First Nation, but for the entire Northwest. The community switched off its diesel generators for the last time on Thursday and connected to Ontario's power grid. It marks the completion of the first phase of a $1.6 billion transmission line project. Adam Riley was there and he files this report.
The generator is done for good.
Christmas came early for residents of Pikangikum First Nation as the community officially became powered by the provincial grid and entered a new chapter. A new chapter which, according to Chief Dean Owen, where it has a reliable power source and is able to stop rationing its electricity and end its moratorium on development.
I'm very excited and I'm confident to say that this is a turning point for us in terms of the long waiting list of infrastructure that could have been here 10 years ago.
The switch will also have an enormous environmental impact. Owen says over the last 2 years, the community has burned 12 to 15,000 liters of diesel fuel a day running the generators. The 117-kilometer-long transmission line from Red Lake was built over the past 13 months at a cost of $60 million. Wataynikaneyap Power CEO Margaret Kinequinash says the Pikangikum line is just the beginning.
This is kind of like an intro line into Poplar Hill, North Spirit, and all the way up to Sandy Lake, Kiwewin, Deer Lake, the KO communities. And Sandy Lake is the furthest community to be hooked up from this line that we built. So this is a significant progress for those communities.
Kinequinash says another line from Pickle Lake is expected to start construction in 2019. Also on hand for the ceremony was Kenora MP Bob Nault and Kiwetanong MPP Saul Mamakwa. Nault says it was a day you wouldn't want to miss, no matter who you are.
This is a game changer. This is a new era. You can frame it in any way you want, but it is going to make a huge difference to the growth of the community and the opportunities that they'll have.
A parent, a young mother, messaged me and said, you know what, I'll be able to have Christmas lights in my house this year, which they haven't done for years.
Pikangikum is just the first step in this massive project, as over the next few years, more and more communities will become connected to the provincial grid. And the benefits to that don't just stop there. Over time, those communities will then be able to start their own power generation projects and feed into the grid, thus creating more economic opportunity for the communities here in the north. Adam Riley, TBT News.
The Ontario Energy Board has delayed a decision on which company will build the new $700 million transmission line from Thunder Bay to Wawa. That decision was expected on Thursday, but instead the OEB has requested the two bidders submit a firm price tag for the project by the end of January. The 450-kilometer power line is needed to secure the electricity needs of this region. NextBridge was working on developing the line for the past 5 years, but when their price tag continued to escalate, Hydro One submitted a competing bid earlier this year, which they claim would save the province about $100 million. The OEB says it wants both companies to submit a not-to-exceed price with no additional conditions or qualifiers by January 31st. The co-chair of the Northwest Energy Task Force, Larry Hebert, says he was hoping for a decision today so the project would be completed by the end of 2020.
Well, rather disappointing. They didn't make a full decision. Basically, they said we're postponing. More information is required by the end of January. Then we'll make a decision after that. Sounds like to the lowest bidder, but that may not be the case either. And there's a difference because Hydro One wants to go through Pakasaw. I don't think they're going to be able to go through there. That's a $50 million difference for them. And the in-service date of 2020 is probably out the window.
Meanwhile, the president of Supercom, which has been training Indigenous people to work on the project, says they're frustrated and disappointed at the delay. Matt Dupuis says they were hoping for a clear direction before the new year. Hydro One has already submitted a not-to-exceed price of $683 million to the OEB. NextBridge's latest estimate was $737 million, plus or minus 10%. Last month, the Ontario Energy Board announced it would allow a merger between the region's two largest electrical utilities, Thunder Bay Hydro and Kenora Hydro, to go through. As of January 1st, 2019, both companies would cease to exist and a new, yet-to-be-named utility will take over. The deal will leave the city of Kenora with a 9% stake and Thunder Bay with a controlling 91% stake in the new company. Kenora Hydro President and CEO Dave Sinclair calls the merger the end of an era, but feels this is the future for many smaller community-owned utilities. He adds there's an opportunity for an expansion later on, which would create even more jobs in the region.
The industry itself has been very complex in the last 10 years and becoming more so. So it's that much more difficult for smaller utilities to survive. There's a number of diverging technologies that are placed on us with, electric vehicles and storage, that type of thing. So it's become very, very complex, not just in billing, but in all aspects that makes it difficult for small utilities to survive. So, the merger with Thunder Bay was a sort of a natural progression for us.
Sinclair says details for the final signing to make the merger complete are still being worked out. Police in Dryden have charged 2 people in connection with the sudden death of a 3-year-old boy last year. In February 2017, Dryden police responded to a call at a residence about a child in distress. The boy was rushed to hospital and was pronounced dead. A request to the OPP's crime unit was made and a post-mortem was conducted. Now, after a 22-month-long joint investigation, 40-year-old William Walmsley and 31-year-old Ray Don Kushner are facing charges of criminal negligence causing death and failure to provide the necessaries of life. They're scheduled to appear in Dryden Court in late January. A potential breakthrough this week for residents here in the Northwest dealing with very high gas prices. 3 weeks ago, Ontario Energy Minister and Kenora Rainy River MPP Greg Rickford announced he had requested the Competition Bureau to investigate gas prices across this region. He says after the province removed the carbon tax, prices should have dropped 5 cents per litre immediately. However, that didn't happen. This week, he announced the federal agency has agreed to his request and will be examining the situation in northwestern Ontario. Rickford hopes the investigation will lead to lower prices at the pumps and improved transparency into pricing practices.
And an understanding by people in northwestern Ontario what the hell has been going on and how gas pricing can be transparent for all of us in Ontario, but especially in light of the fact that there's proof positive that we have been paying higher prices and get some kind of an explanation for that.
The Competition Act includes measures against price fixing and competitor collaboration in the retail gasoline market. Since 2008, 33 people and 12 companies have pleaded guilty or have been found guilty of fixing gas prices in several markets in Ontario and Quebec. Area survivors of the 60 Scoop gathered at the Victoria Inn Tuesday to receive advice and support as they prepare their claim forms for the $1.3 billion federal statement. The original lawsuit, filed nearly a decade ago, cited years of psychological damage suffered by the children who were removed from their families and placed in foster homes or adopted. The information session hosted by the claims administrator Collectiva was held at the Victoria Inn. It's one of 21 sessions happening across Canada. Eligible class action members will receive compensation of between $25,000 to $50,000. Indigenous Liaison Officer Dan Richard says this session was successful even if victims aren't close to receiving their settlement.
I'm presuming, this has opened up some wounds that they have not had in a while, and this is not sufficient necessarily for the amounts they may be looking for, because this is a defined amount per claimant. But for this information session and providing all the information that they have to help with the form, I think we've achieved what we were trying to provide.
This is only for cultural identity. What about all the abuse that these adoptees have endured in these foster homes or in these adoptive homes? And that's another process, they're saying. And it's just like, this has already gone on for over 10 years. So we need to put this to rest, and we need to get some clear answers.
Around 80 people dropped by looking for guidance and answers as they move forward with the application process. Eligible class action members have until August 30th to apply. A new collaboration between 6 First Nation communities near Lake Nipigon and the provincial government is in the works. It comes after a tense meeting between the two groups. Adam Riley has this report.
A special meeting between the leadership of 6 First Nations which live on or near Lake Nipigon and the Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry was held in Nipigon earlier this month. The purpose of the meeting was to discuss how to manage and protect the lake. Red Rock Indian Band Chief Matt Dupuis says the lake is naturally protected due to its isolation.
There's not many invasive species because there is no way at it. So the fact now that we can start managing something while it's in a pristine state instead of doing what normally happens and start managing it once it's in a deteriorated state.
However, the meeting got off to a rocky start as there were several tense interactions between attendees and the MNRF due to concerns it would be a repeat of previous meetings, according to Gull Bay First Nation Chief Wilfred King.
Pretty much a straightforward agenda that was developed by the province of Ontario, and it was basically the same old, we're going to tell you what we want to do and what we're going to do, and that was the basis of this meeting. We have a long history of Crown Aboriginal relations, and we know what the issues are, we know what our rights are, and it was empowering that we're going to be changing the course of history here.
That course correction was a complete change of direction of how the meeting was delivered. From a presentation with a Q&A into a collaborative brainstorming session to create a working group which aims to co-manage Lake Nipigon. King says he celebrates that change as a reclamation of the rights of all 6 communities and its residents.
Which is very important for us. We've been here since time immemorial. We've utilized the lake for our subsistence, and we want to have a say in the future course of the direction where that lake is going.
Ministry of Natural Resources and Forestry officials were unable to comment at all to TBT News at the meeting, but Dupuis says the ministry seemed intrigued by the proposals made by the crowd.
My perception, I think they were pleasantly surprised. I think that they're not used to seeing an evolution into ways of thinking, into different problem solutions. So, it's the start of something good. I'm very optimistic.
Dupuis says he and the other 5 communities are now going to wait for a ministerial directive from the MNRF in hopes of creating a new positive relationship. Adam Riley, TBT News.
Coming up next, a regional airline executive is calling on regulators to create mandatory de-icing procedures at all northern airports. The Transportation Safety Board is calling for better de-icing equipment regulations at remote northern airports. The call comes after an anonymous questionnaire showed pilots frequently take off with ice contaminating critical surfaces of their aircraft. Tyler Kelleher spoke with a regional airline official about the issue, and he files this report.
I think it has to be a system designed for everyone, not for one. And that's what we've created. certain airlines have advantages over the others today because they have that equipment in place.
North Star Vice President Tom Mayer recognizes that his airline has the equipment in place to ensure proper aircraft de-icing, but that's not the case for everyone. Smaller flight groups lack the proper appliances to keep their planes free of debris, maximizing the issue when flying out of remote First Nations communities. Some northern sites fail to supply the correct infrastructure to facilitate de-icing, leading to additional delays, reroutes, and cancellations.
Canceling a passenger flight, well, it's an inconvenience, costs the community members money, which shouldn't happen. But at the end of the day, when you're dealing with life or death situations, that's what we were concerned about.
Those life or death situations are countless medevac flights that come in and out of Thunder Bay from northern regions. While remote communities might lack the operation and storage to welcome the possibility of operating de-icing gear, they wouldn't lack the funding. It would cost the community about $150,000 to purchase de-icing equipment. The real cost comes from operating the products, which airlines are more than willing to cover. Now, while several factors might alter a region's want and need to purchase the products, Mayer says they shouldn't even have that option.
The best thing is to make a mandatory requirement that if you operate you must provide these services in remote communities. And if that was done, tomorrow we would have no problems.
Mayer says he's been a strong advocate for government-enforced de-icing regulations, and he's been in conversation with government officials about the topic for the past 20 years. Tyler Kelleher, TBT News.
It's been 6 months since Ignace revealed its new look, and now the township is seeking input from the community to plan for its future. Part of that plan includes shaping and updating the official plan and zoning bylaw for the town. Adam Riley has this report.
It was 2005 when the town of Ignace last updated its official plan and zoning bylaws. In the 13 years since then, the community has seen many changes. And with the path the town is beginning to take with its recent rebrand and the new mayor and council at the helm, administration is seeking input from the public to help shape that plan. According to Special Projects Planner Melissa Philipchuk, that input gives her and other town employees a good grasp of the community.
A lot of us are new at the township, so we don't actually know a lot of the things that are going on. And if no one steps up to say anything about it, we won't know. So we won't be able to fix anything, and we'll just end up making documents that will not fit the town and not be suitable. So to be suitable for the future growth, and looking forward.
Philipchuk says residents stated at both sessions they wanted affordable housing and seniors housing to be key pieces of the official plan. The meetings were facilitated by the consulting firm WSP and used a World Cafe model to gather responses from attendees. One of those attendees was resident and business owner Bill Laidlaw. He applauds both the turnout at the meetings and the model in which information and opinions were gathered.
This is an interesting process of going about it the right way, of actually finding out what's actually there rather than importing some preconceived notions, finding what's actually there, how people look, think, how the community is growing and changing and dreaming.
Many of those suggestions and ideas didn't come as a surprise to Laidlaw, who plans on keeping tabs and participating in future meetings. Nadia DeSanti is a senior project manager with WSP. She says official plans are not only integral for communities to have, they are provincially mandated. In addition to housing, she says there were several suggestions for the Highway 17 corridor, which runs through Ignace.
Cleaning it up, making it more attractive, landscaping, getting more businesses out there, and also some other things that we heard is, getting people off the highway to actually enter into the community and see what's the beauty that's there. The natural assets in terms of fishing, hunting, the slow pace, nice relaxed pace of community life.
DeSanti adds, with the potential from several major projects, including the Ring of Fire and the nuclear waste repository, Ignace, with the updated plan in hand, is ready for the activity, which could supercharge the community both in population and in its economy. Adam Riley, TBT News.
It used to be outdoor education meant gym class would be taking place on the playground. But in recent years, other aspects of schooling, such as science and mathematics, are now being taken out of the classroom setting and moved into the schoolyard. Alana Pickrell has this look into how students are getting more physical while learning the fundamentals of education.
When it comes to math or science, students usually learn within the four walls of the classroom. However, students at Lillienberg School in Vermilion Bay have broken the confines of the classroom and taken the lesson outside. Jordan Lucier is a grade 6 student and explains how he and his classmates evolved the lesson plan.
We were doing a project if you had what was in your bag or on your body, and you got to bring 5 things to an island. So it started off there, and then me and my friends said we could probably maybe write a book.
Grade 5-6 teacher Shannon Elliott says having students take the lead on the delivery style of lessons is part of a new philosophy which she believes gives students a better grasp of the fundamentals. Activities such as having the students measure trees to determine their age not only gives them more fresh air, but also serves as a key component of the mathematics curriculum.
I like that. It's an authentic task. I think they're going to remember it more when they're actually hands-on measuring those things outside, and it's trees that they see every day in their own playground. So then bringing it back in, they'll remember more. So when we talk about, like today we talked about mean, mode, and median, and those numbers actually meant something to them.
Because of Northern Ontario's diverse spectrum of weather and seasons, there is no shortage to the lesson options available. In addition to the tree measuring, students also built shelters and learned other survival techniques.
We made a plantain solve, and we went outside to get all of the plants we needed. And then we made a little container of green plantain solve.
Okay, and what was that for?
For your cuts, bug bites, and just to make it stop stinging and that.
Elliott says this style of learning isn't limited to the grade 5 and 6. Students in other grades at the school, as well as other schools across the Northwest, are catching on to this new teaching style. Alana Pickerel, TBT News.
Stay tuned, we'll have more after the break. Children in 2 remote northern communities got a special early visit from the jolly old elf himself on Monday. North Star Air, in collaboration with Gardween and the RCMP, were in Deer Lake and Poplar Hill First Nations to deliver gifts as part of the Toys for the North initiative. Adam Riley hitched aboard Santa's backup sleigh and files this report.
Last week, this massive C-130 Hercules made a stopover in Thunder Bay, with it carrying thousands of toys destined for children in Ontario's remote north. On Monday, some of those toys flew up to Deer Lake and Poplar Hill First Nations, located some 750 kilometers northwest of Thunder Bay. And this trip had a special guest as the toys were hand-delivered to the children by the big man himself, Santa Claus, bringing smiles to their faces. Deer Lake Deputy Chief Mickey Meekus was left almost speechless from the generosity of strangers and organizations.
Well, it means a lot for the kids to show that people care from outside, and to have airlines sponsor this trip, and that is very awesome.
This is North Star Air's 4th year of involvement with Toys for the North. Spokesperson Karen Matson says the program is important as it can get expensive to purchase gifts for residents of fly-in communities, and Toys for the North helps remove some of that burden.
A lot of people from the northern communities are coming to Thunder Bay to do their shopping. So for them, it's a much more added expense. They've got to pay for the travel to get here, do their shopping, bring it back home. That's a lot of cargo for them also. So this way we get to, take things to them.
Accompanying Santa for the trip were members of Canada's finest, the RCMP, who helped deliver and hand out the toys. However, there are other stops planned in addition to the two communities, according to RCMP Staff Sergeant Normand Roy.
We have also some toys that was already shipped to Fort Hope. This Wednesday, we'll all be traveling to Northwest Angle. So there's 3 communities that will be bringing some toys. Northwest Angle 33, 37, and Angle Inlet in Minnesota.
After Deer Lake, it was on to Poplar Hill for a community feast, where in addition to the toys for the children, several families were also given all the fixings for a turkey dinner through other regional organizations.
We had some other organizations that were able to help out. Pikangikum Child Services, they donated quite a bit, and there's so many organizations that help us make this to have a feast like this.
More than 600 toys were handed out to the children in the two communities Monday, and with the other deliveries to Fort Hope and the communities in Northwest Angle, that number is expected to jump to just over 1,000. Adam Riley, TBT News.
And that's all for Northwest Newsweek. I'm Nima Rajan. Take care.